Hello class, my name is Katie Sino and I will be discussing prejudice between groups and the attitudes groups have toward each other when in different situations. First, I will be starting off by discussing the hypothesis or procedure of the study. In the summer of 1949 Connecticut, an experiment was conducted by Muzaffer Sherif titled Experiments in Group Conflict. Sherif was studying the natural development of group relations, coherence, and conflict. He was testing the conditions that led to conflict and the conditions that led to harmony between two groups of people. This subject has been tested many times before, but Sherif's experiment stands out because his study is in such natural conditions that the results are a true human reaction to conflict. There are many deep personal factors that lead to conflict between two groups, whether it is rooted in race, religion, politics, economic, or personal reasons. There is no correct answer as to why there is intergroup conflict or why prejudice controls group attitudes. But this experiment aims to identify the simple, general factors that are found in all groups that lead to conflict, and a simple, general answer as to how we can promote harmony between these groups. Now I will be talking about the methods Sherif used when conducting this study. Through trial and error, Sherif found out that it was difficult to get true results from a lab experiment about intergroup conflict and harmony. So Sherif made the experiment as natural as possible, which ended up being an isolated summer camp. Something interesting to note is that the researchers chose the setting of the experiment before knowing who the subjects were even going to be. The idea of having a summer camp as a setting prompted who the subjects would be. The subjects were boys ages 11 and 12. They were carefully chosen so that every boy came from similar backgrounds and, most importantly, had no prior relations with one another. The selection of boys were very thought out. The researchers spoke to the parents, teachers, neighbors, doctors, and friends of each boy to get an idea of their personality and to make sure each boy had more similarities than differences. The researchers went to the extent of obtaining school files, grades, medical records, and even observed the boys' interaction in their classes at school and during lunch with their friends. These measures were taken so drastically because the researchers wanted as little interference from the boys' personal neurosis, background, and life experience. Also, it is very important to note that all of the boys believed they were attending a regular summer camp and did not know that they were specifically chosen for an experiment. It was important for Sherif to set a natural and lifelike condition while staying in a controlled environment that is run by the experimenters without having direct guidance from the adults. The researchers were playing the role of camp counselors, regular staff members. In addition to the observation and notes from the researchers, microphones and cameras were placed all around the camp to ensure that nothing was missed. The boys arrived to the camp in 2 buses. Since none of the boys had met each other prior to the camp, this was their first meeting. Once the boys arrived at camp, they were all housed in one big communal housing center. The researchers deliberately put all the boys together and gave them time to meet one another and form friendships. After the boys bonded with each other and chose who their friends were, the researchers, who were the camp staff, set out to find who were friends with who. The boys were casually asked during conversation who their best friends were. Once the staff knew which boys were best friends, they purposefully split them up for the remainder of the camp. It was important to the experimenters that the boys believed they were randomly split up from their best friends. The researchers were curious as to what would happen when all these boys, who were all strangers, made friendships, then were separated and housed with strangers again. The object was to see if in the future, when group conflict was at its highest, would the boys who were best friends view them differently because they were in a different group now. After the 2 groups of boys were assigned, the real experiment began. Tests that were disguised as regular camp activities and games sparked competition between the 2 groups, and conflict arose. And even though the conditions and environment of the experiment were disguised as a camp to be as natural as possible, each activity was controlled by the researchers to control whether the group would have conflict or harmony at that time. I will be passing this presentation off to Kara, who will be discussing the results of the experiment, and I look forward to watching everyone else's video, and I hope you enjoy our presentation.